Iran's once-open maritime corridor, the Strait of Hormuz, has been largely blocked since February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched their air war against Iran. The question hanging over the entire conflict is this: can the United States permanently seal every exit for Iran's navy? And what happens when Iran refuses to yield? On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched surprise airstrikes on Iran, targeting military and government sites and assassinating Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Iran's response was immediate and ruthless. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued warnings forbidding passage through the strait, boarded and attacked merchant ships, and laid sea mines in the waterway. Until the war's start, about 25% of the world's seaborne oil trade and 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas passed through the strait. That flow collapsed almost overnight. At the height of the conflict, traffic through the waterway fell to as few as 2 tankers a day. The economic damage was staggering, and it was global. The United States and Israel have largely destroyed Iran's conventional naval fleet in a massive bombing campaign since February 28th. But Tehran's threat to the strait has not diminished. That's the central paradox of this war at sea. The side with the bigger navy is winning every surface engagement, and still can't fully open the water. Iran's 2 Hemorrhage-class warships, its Alvin-class frigate Sabalan, and the forward-basing ship Makran, which gave Tehran a limited long-range power projection capability, are gone. On March 4th, a United States submarine torpedoed Iran's Iris Dana warship in the Indian Ocean near Sri Lanka as the frigate returned from multinational exercises, with roughly 180 personnel on board. It was the first confirmed wartime submarine sinking of a surface warship since Britain sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano in 1982 during the Falklands War. Among the vessels destroyed was the Iran's Makran, Iran's largest naval vessel, which had served as a drone carrier. Satellite images showed black smoke pouring from the ship at Bandar Abbas base. Maritime security firm Vanguard confirmed that the Iris Bayandor, Iris Nagdi, and the Iris Jamaran were also among the ships destroyed in the strikes. On March 26th, Israel killed Iran's top naval commander, Alireza Tangsiri, portraying the killing as part of an effort to support the push to reopen the strait. According to Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz, Tangsiri was overseeing the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and was directly responsible for the blocking of it. Yet the decapitation of Iran's naval command didn't stop the fighting. It barely slowed it down. Besides Iran's conventional navy, the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps has its own naval units that continued to hound and attack shipping in the Persian Gulf. The real warfighting instrument was the IRGC's navy units, purpose-built for harassment and denial operations in the Persian Gulf's shallow, island-cluttered waters, where geography compresses distances and partly neutralizes the advantages of a superior conventional force. The IRGC mans the strait with a fleet of small speedboats and attack craft equipped with missiles and mines. These boats are harder to target than traditional battleships, as they often evade satellite detection due to their size. According to one report, Iran even lost track of mines it had planted in the Strait of Hormuz, and is therefore unable to fully open the strait. That detail says everything. Iran weaponized the waterway so thoroughly that it can no longer control its own weapon. So how does the United States respond to an enemy that fights with speedboats, drones, and hidden mines? An enemy too small to sink cleanly and too dispersed to destroy in a single campaign? The answer, it turns out, is to stop playing by conventional naval rules entirely. The United States and Iran held negotiations in Islamabad on April 11th and 12th, which ended without agreement. Following the failure of the talks, Trump said he no longer cared about negotiations. On April 13, 2026, the United States military naval blockade of Iran took effect at the direction of President Donald Trump and under the command of Admiral Brad Cooper at United States Central Command. This was not a patrol. This was a siege. According to United States Central Command, the blockade was set to encompass the entirety of the Iranian coastline, warning that any vessel entering or departing the blockaded area without authorization is subject to interception, diversion, and capture. In the first 24 hours after the blockade took effect, United States Central Command reported that over 10,000 United States personnel supported by more than a dozen warships and dozens of aircraft, were enforcing the operation. No vessels attempted to breach the blockade, while 6 commercial ships complied with orders and were redirected back to Iranian ports. On April 22nd, President Trump claimed that the naval blockade had cost Iran $500 million daily, while the Department of Defense estimated that Iran had lost $4.8 billion in oil revenue by May 1st. Nearly $5 billion gone in under 3 weeks. Under the first blockade period, the United States disabled 9 ships that United States Central Command said failed to obey the blockade. 3 Indian crew members were killed aboard tanker MT Settebello when United States Central Command forces disabled the ship on June 9. The blockade had teeth, and the world was watching. Now here's where the story gets more complicated, and where the pressure on both sides truly began to reveal itself. On June 17, Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian signed the Memorandum of Understanding to end the war, with Trump signing it during dinner with French President Emmanuel Makran at the Palace of Versailles following the Group of 7 summit. The blockade was lifted. The strait, at least in principle, was open. In June, 70% of trackable transits of Hormuz were by non-Iranian ships, according to Lloyd's List intelligence data. Traffic was recovering. A deal appeared to be holding. Then, the IRGC made a decision that shattered everything. On July 7, 2 tankers, the Qatari-owned liquefied natural gas tanker Al-Raqayyat and the Saudi-flagged supertanker Wedyan, were struck by projectiles in the strait. Both ships were damaged, and Al-Raqayyat was evacuated after suffering a fire to its engine room, which put it at risk of exploding. Less than 24 hours later, the IRGC attacked a 3rd vessel in the strait. In response, the United States Department of the Treasury reimposed sanctions on Iran's oil exports that were lifted after the signing of the memorandum. Early on July 12, the IRGC Navy declared the strait closed after claiming it had fired warning shots at a ship attempting to cross an unauthorized route. United States Central Command accused Iran of striking the Cyprus-flagged container ship GFS Galaxy, causing heavy damage to its engine room. The vessel's crew, including 11 Indian nationals, abandoned ship in a lifeboat. The one missing man, who was from Pune, India, was confirmed dead on July 14, when his body was recovered by the Omani Navy. He was a civilian. He had nothing to do with the war between governments. In response to the attack, the United States launched strikes against Iranian missile batteries, air defense systems, and IRGC fast attack boats at multiple locations around the Strait of Hormuz, including military targets on Keshem Island. The renewed attacks marked a further unraveling of the United States-Iran Memorandum of Understanding, which Trump declared over after the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps resumed attacks on commercial ships. After a day of negotiations with regional mediators on Saturday, the IRGC attacked another ship and declared the strait closed until further notice, triggering 2 rounds of United States strikes on Iran on Saturday and Sunday. On July 13th, Trump announced the reinstatement of the blockade, which United States Central Command confirmed would start the following day. On July 14th, the United States reinstated the naval blockade. United States Central Command confirmed it had more than 20 United States Navy warships and hundreds of military aircraft operating across the Middle East. American forces remain vigilant, lethal, and ready, it stated. United States Central Command announced it had struck dozens of military targets near the Strait of Hormuz and coastal areas. Fighter aircraft, drones, and naval vessels launched precision munitions against Iranian missile and drone sites, naval capabilities, and coastal defense systems during a 7-hour wave. It was the 4th consecutive night the United States had conducted strikes against Iran. By July 17th, today, the United States is on its 6th consecutive day of strikes. 7 vessels crossed the international waterway on July 16th, down from 13 the previous day, according to Kepler shipping data. Just 22 ships crossed the strait on July 9th, compared to 147 crossings the day before the war began in February, according to Kepler. The numbers tell the story without commentary. Now, the honest question is whether the United States can actually win this standoff. The blockade closes Iran's ports. The airstrikes degrade its hardware, but can it force a navy that has already lost most of its conventional fleet and fights with mines, speedboats, and shore-launched missiles to surrender the strait? Iran's speedboats, missiles, drones, and mines have shown they can still wreak havoc in the Strait of Hormuz, defying daily strikes from the most powerful navy in the world. 5 months into the war, the United States is confronting the limits of its military power against a determined adversary in a critical global choke point. United States Central Command reported striking Iranian air defense systems, command and control networks, coastal radar sites, anti-ship missile capabilities, and more than 60 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps small boats in and near the strait to degrade Iran's ability to continue attacking international commerce. 60 small boats destroyed in a single announced action, and the IRGC still operates. Analysts have pointed to Iranian drone capabilities near the islands of Qashm, Hengam, and Ladakh, positioned close to the main shipping lanes, as the most immediate persistent threat. These aren't distant launch pads. They sit directly above the corridor every tanker must use. The United States and Iran continue to have dueling routes through the strait, with Iran relying on its so-called Tehran toll passage, while the United States promotes the path closer to Oman, although it comes with the risk of Iranian attacks. Two competing lanes, two competing authorities claiming the same water. Washington sees the Strait of Hormuz as an international waterway, but since the United States and Israel launched their war on Iran, Tehran has asserted its control over the strait and insisted ships get permission and follow approved routes. Iran's position isn't just military, it's legal and strategic. Tehran's argument is that a portion of the strait runs through its territorial waters, and it intends to make that claim stick at gunpoint. The blockade threatens to dramatically escalate tensions in the strait and change the economics of shipping energy and materials in the Middle East. The ripple effects are already global. Every tanker rerouted, every cargo delayed, every insurer repricing their risk. It all flows from 21 miles of contested water. The United States has now reimposed the blockade twice in 3 months. Each time it lifts pressure, Iran tests the boundary. Each time Iran tests the boundary, the United States responds harder. The cycle is tightening. Critics of the interim deal signed between Iran and the United States blame the lack of details in the agreement for the confusion over the management of the strait that led to renewed fighting. An ambiguous deal that neither side fully honors isn't a deal. It's a pause with consequences attached. What this amounts to today is a situation where Iran's conventional fleet is shattered, its top naval commander is dead, its ports are blockaded by more than 20 United States warships, and its coastline is being struck for the 6th consecutive night. And yet Iran still controls the mines already laid, still launches drones from island positions, still declares the strait closed and dares the world to challenge it. The United States holds the outer ring, Iran holds the inner corridor. Neither side fully holds the strait, and the world's energy supply hangs in the gap between those two positions. What comes next determines whether the Strait of Hormuz becomes a permanent battleground or gets resolved at a table. And right now, there's no table in sight. Does Iran's new leadership have enough internal authority to actually make a binding deal on Hormuz? Or will the hardliners inside the IRGC keep pulling the trigger regardless of what negotiators agree to? And if this blockade holds for months, which breaks first? Iran's economy or the patience of the Gulf states and Asian powers who need that oil and are watching their own interests disappear into a war they didn't start? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if you want the next analysis the moment it drops, subscribe, because this one is far from over.